All right, don't get weird. This is my vlogs. I'm just signing in here. I got to get a little clip. Good morning to you, my friend. How are you doing?
Good. Hanging in there.
Yeah? Okay, good morning. So we're going to hit some legs today. Now, most of us have very tight adductors, which are the muscles that bring your knees to the inside, and tight hamstrings because we sit a lot. So one thing that I prioritize when I first get into the gym, when I start training legs, is I loosen up with this machine. I like to call it good girls, bringing the knees to the inside, the adductions, right? That's going to help loosen up my hips. So when I do any type of squatting motion, it's not going to feel like my knees want to buckle to the inside. So I'm going to loosen up this, and then I'm going to loosen up the hamstrings because our knees are generally bent when we're sitting most of the time, right? So those are going to be the two muscles that impair my ability to move my hips. So you're always going to want to start off with loosening those two things up. So I'm going to start off here with doing some adductions, and then we'll do some RDLs to stretch out my hamstrings. And then from there, I'm going to probably go into maybe some leg extension movements to put some blood in my quads, and then go right into my squatting movements for the day. So let's hit this. Pretty self-explanatory with this machine. You just want to make sure you're getting a wide enough range of motion to allow that stretch to happen. And you also want to make sure your butt's not tucked underneath. You want to try to open the hips up. So I like to rotate it, stretch the hamstrings, open it up, chest up high, and that's going to allow for that full stretch. So just take this real slow. You don't need to stack this fucking machine up. Just nice and slow. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll even open my legs up a little bit wider. I'll extend my legs. And that way I'll get a little bit bigger of a stretch here. So just taking this slow and controlled. I'm going to do about 3-4 sets of this. This isn't very impressive to watch. But this is going to really help loosen my hip complex. So that way when I do my other movements, it's going to feel a lot better. I also like to superset this with bodyweight lunges. That way I can get the hips mobilized too. So I'm kind of opening my hips up, and then I'm also mobilizing them. That'll pull a bunch of blood through the hips itself. And that's going to make me feel a lot better with some of my other squatting movements and leg pressing movements and everything else I'm going to do today. Oh, you're good, man. Go for it. All right. So I'm also going to be doing some walking lunges here. So I like to keep these body weight because what I'm trying to do is, the thing with lunging is it's going to help separate the hips. It's going to help separate the hips. It's one of the only movements that can do that. Okay? Because when you're doing a leg pressing or a squatting movement, generally speaking, you're using both legs at the same time. I like to try to mobilize the hips and get into that deficit. So I'm actually taking my hip bones and I'm rotating them. Because think most of the time when we sit, our hips are in line with each other and they're just getting smashed and compressed. So this way it allows me to also open up and stretch this back hip flexor right here when I'm coming forward. And that's, like I said, going to help open up my hips. See, not too bad. I'm trying to exhaust myself. I'm literally just using this as a stretch and a mobilizing exercise, just to warm everything up. All right, so I got that finished up. Just did 2 sets. Like I said, I'm trying to warm up here. I'm not trying to blast my legs to the moon. So what I'm going to do next is some RDLs. I've mentioned in previous videos that what I like to do when I do these RDLs is get myself some heel wedges. But what that does is it'll elevate my toes up and allow for a bigger stretch down the whole back of my legs and my calves. So from ass to heel is kind of the stretch that I'm trying to get here. So I'm going to do that. I also like to do a couple sets on the Sissy Squat machine. So I might just do that today. Actually, I might switch it up. Let me do it on the Sissy Squat. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right. Okay. So, let me flip this around. Okay, now this little attachment here is generally used for something called a sissy squat. And that's when, usually face this direction, there's nothing sissy about this exercise, very quad focused. And usually sit back into it and you do your squatting movements, right? But what I like to do is spin around and use this to brace my knees so I can get a full hip extension. And I like to do RDLs with it. Because what that'll do is it'll stabilize my lower leg, which you want to keep in place the entire time when you're doing any type of RDL movement. You don't want to get too much bend and too much flexion in the ankles. What you're trying to do is rotate from your hips up towards the ceiling, and you want to anchor this knee and rotate from your hips. So I'm getting a stretch because my hamstrings connect up here to my butt, and I'm trying to pull my butt towards the ceiling while I'm keeping my chest up high. You don't want to fold forward like this. Here, let me take this hoodie off so you can see a little bit better. Okay. All right, so whenever you're doing an RDL movement, what's important to keep in mind is it's important to keep in mind with these RDL movements, you don't want to lean forward, okay? You don't want to arc your back like this. You want to keep your chest straight, okay? Nice straight back. And what I'm doing is I'm rotating from my hips. I'm trying to get my butt towards the ceiling, right? Like if somebody were to grab my butt and pull it up towards the ceiling, that's what I'm trying to do here. So I'm rotating from my hips and I'm pushing my heels back into that so it keeps a nice stable platform for my lower leg. And then I'll feel my hamstrings stretch. And when you do this right, you'll feel nothing in your back. And if you're getting something in your back, it's because you're leaning forward too much. You need to learn to move from your hips, not move from your back, okay? So I'm rotating up, keeping my chest up high, maximize that hamstring stretch, coming down. And for the first few, it's gonna be very tight, okay? Very, very tight. And again, if you don't have this sissy squat machine, you can also do those heel wedges that I've done in other videos, so where I elevate my toes, but it's just another unique way to hit it. And I'm also gonna grab some weight with this because this is obviously way too light. But for your first couple reps here, it may feel a little bit rigid. So just loosen it up a little bit, keep your chest up nice and high. You can also put your hands behind your head. You can also grab a pole, put it behind your back like a wooden pole or something, or a mobility stick. And what you wanna do is, try to hit about like 15 or so-ish of these reps, taking it real slow on the way down, because what that's gonna do is stretch and open up your hamstrings. And a lot of your limitations in your range when it comes to your knees and your ankles, and why you feel tension in your lower back or in your knees when you're squatting, it's because your hamstrings are so tight. It's taking your ass and it's trying to pull it towards your heels. So now when you're squatting, it's like so much tension in your knees and your lower back because you can't get this loosening of the hips to where you can actually squat down, right? So something to keep in mind there is loosen that up. Loosen up the adductors, loosen up the hamstrings, and that's just going to allow for that actual full range of motion without getting any tension in your lower back and in your knees. So let's grab some weight and add it to this. Okay, so I got my bar here. I'm going to toss some 25s on, nothing crazy. Okay. Also, don't get in the habits of using clips unless you're doing something like a single leg, like split squat with like a safety bar, where you need the balance because otherwise the plate will slide off. Like don't do it with benching, and don't do it with like most movements because that'll give you some valuable information. Maybe you're leaning too much to one side. If balance isn't a factor for you, then you don't need these clips. If you're just doing like an isolated movement, take the clips off and get the information. Maybe you're leaning too much to one side, okay? Also, if you're benching by yourself and you put clips on and you gotta bail that fucking weight, how are you getting it off? It's a noob mistake right there. Don't do that shit. All right, let's do this though. Okay, nice little rotation here. All right. Ooh. Again, same thing. I'm not trying to get the bar way out in front of me. That's going to shear my back. But I'm rotating my butt towards the ceiling. And that stretch is going to occur by itself. And what I like to keep in mind is drive my heels back into that as hard as I can. And that's where that stretch will come. You'll start to see my hamstrings split right there. Oh, that's where that stretch is maxed out. Also, I try not to rotate my knees to the outside because it'll put in my glutes. Try to keep your knees facing forward. All right, that was actually very light. I'm using the little girly bar today. Are you using this bench right here? All right. Now, come on, a little bit. There we go. All right. Okay. So whenever it comes to squatting, a lot of people gravitate straight to the squat rack. And a couple reasons why I don't like this is most of the time, like I was mentioning, people sit a lot. So they have a propensity for their body to go into a sitting position, right? And when you're squatting, a lot of times that can put a lot of excess pressure on your knees and your lower back. And they just don't have the foundation for that stability or the core strength. So they're loading a bar on top of their spine. They got a weak core, they got a weak lower back. And on top of that, they probably have tight hamstrings, tight calves. And next thing you know, it's like I feel everything in my lower back, so they stay away from squatting. So they associate all of leg training with squatting, right? You don't need to squat, okay? You should, even if it's like a body weight movement, but you don't absolutely need to if you're trying to grow your legs. Like there's plenty of equipment out there that can help you isolate the legs and really help them grow. Now, what I will tell you is if you're gonna squat, I prefer the Smith machine for many reasons. Why? You don't have to focus on the stability and control of the barbell, right? There's a lot better safety features on it. Like there's stoppers that you could put on there. There's a seat that you could put underneath you. You can also relatch it if you need to instead of walking all the way back to the rack. And overall, it's just a linear movement. So you can focus more on your squat form because you don't have to stay balanced as much, right? So you can kind of develop that form over time. And if you want to, you can graduate to the squat rack. But then again, I'm not trying to compete in powerlifting, right? Or Olympic lifting. So my performance on like a free weight squat is less important than the stimulation I could develop in my legs to help them grow, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna squat on the Smith machine, okay? And I also put a little bench right here. And I don't sit on the bench. I use the bench as like a stopping point so I know not to go too far because you can go too far when you're squatting, right? You can get something called like a butt wink where essentially your butt kind of like goes underneath or it kind of winks out a little bit, right? And if you get too much curvature to the spine, that's gonna cause compression on it and it can pinch nerves, it can bulge discs, it can do all kinds of shit, okay? That being said, you shouldn't be scared of these movements. You just need to know how to do them right and execute them in theory, but also keep practicing them, okay? So when I do a squatting motion on the Smith machine, I'm gonna pick a weight first that's very light, okay? Where I'm gonna try to find that range that feels best for me. So every one of my reps may look different. And although I am wearing Vivo barefoot shoes, which is the shoes that essentially are flat, I still like to squat without shoes on. I like the freedom that I get from it, and I don't know, it just makes me feel at peace. Just my preference. Okay, so when I'm squatting, walking up to the bar, first thing you want to do is make sure your feet are aligned properly. You don't want them super wide. You also don't want them super narrow, okay? You want to try to find that good in-between space. And when I set the bar, right, there's a couple different positions. There's like a higher bar position, there's a lower bar position. You're going to want to feel what feels best for your shoulders, because if you set that bar in the wrong place, it can feel like the shoulder joint's starting to separate, right? And it feels very uncomfortable. Or if you have it on the bone the whole time, it's like your consciousness and your attention is going towards the fact that the bar is hurting your back, and you're not focusing on your squat form anymore, so you're just trying to finish your set and get it done quick. So what you want to do instead is find that perfect position and use your traps as like a pad. So I'm like trying to pinch my traps, and then I'm setting it right on top of them, okay? Now, a couple things to keep in mind. You want to keep your chest up high and elevated. And I'll get another angle of this so you can see what I'm talking about. But you want to keep your chest up high, elevated, pinch the shoulder blades. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put my butt back and bring my knees forward simultaneously, but I'm thinking about squatting in between two walls. So I'm still trying to go down straight. I'm not trying to get this ultra hinge movement going. I'm still trying to go down straight. And I'm trying to find that range, and I'm trying to drive my feet through the floor. That's very important, okay? So I'm trying to sit nice and slow, and I'm trying to drive my feet through the floor. That'll help me engage my glutes. And go slow with this. You know, a lot of guys are like, oh, I need to, like with the bench, I need to just throw the 45-pound plate on. It's like, look, find a weight that feels good for you and focus on the feeling, not the finish, right? Don't worry about your weights. Just focus on nice, slow, controlled reps. Get a nice little warm-up in. And then you can go up with your weights. But things to keep in mind is, think about where your nipples are pointing. I know it sounds kind of silly, but if your nipples are pointing towards the ground, you're leaning forward too much. You want them to be out in front of you, so keep your chest up high, right? Get that stretch to the abdomen. You don't want to compress it too much, because then you'll get that rounding to the back like this, and then you'll start to feel it in your lower back. So keep your chest up. When I'm squatting down, I'm trying to sit nice and easy, okay? You want to keep that spine nice and aligned, okay? You don't want the discs to be offset. You want to be stacked on top of each other. Create a nice strong foundation for you that we could drive through the floor with all that power, okay? So I'm gonna do a few sets of this, and then we'll move on. On. Okay, so I finished up my squatting movements. I started off with the adductions, the lunges, a little bit of the RDLs, and everything feels kind of loose now. So what I'm gonna focus on is like single leg movement. I'm gonna focus on doing a Bulgarian split squat. And I do this two different ways. Sometimes I'll use a safety bar. I've done in other videos where I have, you know, that safety squat bar and I put my foot on a band, and I really enjoy that. However, the rack that I want to use is just not available for it right now. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it up and I'm going to use a dumbbell and then put my foot on a bench. So when I do this, the idea is I'm trying to focus on glute engagement. You know, you can get a lot of quad in this too, a lot of the front of your leg, but I'm trying to focus on my butt. And what I want to focus on is sitting back into a pocket, okay? I want to put the dumbbell on the leg that's going to be on the bench, right? So it helps me sink backwards into that pocket. And the front leg that's on the floor is going to be doing all of the movement itself, okay? You do not want to push off that back leg that's on the bench. Instead, what you want to do is focus on driving your front foot through the floor and getting a little bit of a hinge movement moving forward. Now, this is one of those exercises you do want to move forward just slightly, because that's what's going to help stretch that entire glute and help engage it, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple sets of this. I have a 75 here. Again, you should start off with body weight with this until you try to get an understanding of the way it feels, okay? Because if you're just jumping right into this, if you're getting stress in your knees and you have trouble balancing, you can also get like some sort of pole or something to help you balance with this, or go close to a wall and put your hand on a wall, okay? Because by no means are we focusing on stability with this movement. It's strictly an isolated glute exercise. So if you're having trouble balancing, find a way to catch your balance and just focus on an isolation. So let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm gonna grab onto this. All I'm going to do both legs so you could see. But one foot's on the bench. The other foot's positioned out front. Now this dumbbell is going to go on the side where my foot's up because I'm going to set it on this leg and I'm going to let it sit me and push me back in. That's going to help with that separation of the hips that I was doing with the lunges earlier. So I'm going to grab onto this dumbbell. Make sure my foot is nice and flat on the floor. Keeping my chest up nice and high. And I'm trying to sit backwards into it. Lean forward. And I'm trying to stretch this side of my glute on this side over here. Okay? Taking it nice and slow. Again, driving this foot through the floor. Nothing is on my back leg. It's just there for balance. What's up, brother? Oh. All right, other side now, so you can see it. Sitting back, a little bit of a hinge, stretch this glute, drive through the floor, okay? Fuck. Holy shit. Let me move this over here. Oh my god. I am sweating like a whore in church. It's interesting how much more I sweat now that I have more food in me. It's almost like it's like a metabolic dysfunction. Like when you're low on calories, like your body's like refusing to sweat. Well, my legs are fucking, I don't know if you can see, my legs are literally shaking right now. Just from being in this position. I didn't even do that much volume today. I literally just, I don't know. I guess my body's just kind of a little bit in shock from all the abuse that I put in the last like 14 weeks. And yeah, my legs are literally fucking shaking. Can you see this shit? Like a leaf in the wind. Anyway, the thing I'm going to finish up with today, I did some leg presses and a couple more sets of like barbell lunges. I did it real light with a 45 like pound barbell. And then with a leg press, I only did 3 plates per side. I went really deep. I also use this like ab mat pad. It's like these little like bowed pads, these black ones. It's like flat on the bottom and it's bowed. I'll put a little picture right here. And I put that behind my back when I do leg presses to support the natural arc of your spine, because sometimes people's spines flatten out. And when they flatten out like that, it actually takes pressure and it puts it into their hips in a strange way, because their pelvis is no longer aligned. Like you need that natural curvature to your lower back in order for your pelvis to be aligned properly. Otherwise, you're going to get a lot of stress in the hips themselves and sometimes even in the knees. So I use that ab mat to kind of neutralize it, and that way I actually get a lot bigger stretch in my quads when I'm going down. I don't feel anything in my knees. Dude, my legs will not fucking stop shaking. So last thing I'm going to finish up with is this hip thrust movement. Now, if you don't do this movement because you think it's girly, you are fucking missing out, my friend. This shit will fix your hips, strengthen your boners, all kinds of shit. Because what it's doing is strengthening the pelvic floor, and it's also going to help strengthen and facilitate your lower back too, because the foundation of your lower back comes from the hips themselves. And if you have weak glutes, well, then you have unstable hips. So you definitely want to make sure that you're adding this into your routine when it comes to your legs, because that'll really help develop the glute muscles. And when you add more glute profile, it's also going to correct your posture in general, because your hips are your center of gravity, right? It's what keeps you upright. It's the junction between your lower body and your upper body. And your glutes will help keep a nice, strong, upright posture too. Because when they start to get weak, you lose the ability to hinge properly, like lean forward. Your body will start to collapse on itself. So you want to have good, strong glute muscles to keep you in an upright position, help keep you have strong legs, and keep pressure out of the lower back itself. Your glutes also counteract your hip flexors, which are the muscles that actually bring your knees up. You see how my knee's bent right now? So when I bring my knee up like this, that's my hip flexor movement. And those muscles yank on your lower back because you're sitting all day long, right? So these muscles, they connect to each of your legs, to the hip flexors. They go to each of your legs, and then they connect to your lower spine. So when you sit there, when you're sitting, you're bringing your knee up, you actually shrink those hip flexors, and they yank on your lower back all day. And when you spend long periods of time sitting, your body over time will adapt to a sitting position. So when you stand up, your body wants to fold in half, right? So in order to fix and adjust that, you need to train your glute muscles, because your glute muscles are opposite to that. It helps open up your hips by like extending your leg downward, right? So when I do this motion, I'm going to be driving my hips up, and that's what'll stretch those hip flexors, okay? And that'll help strengthen your hips, strengthen the boners, and then on top of that, fix your back pain, okay? So that's definitely something that you're going to want to add into your routine, and make sure that you, don't feel too weird doing it. Nobody gives a fuck, right? All right, my legs are shaking like a son of a bitch. I'm going to finish up this set here. I'll probably do about 3 sets of this. I'm going to keep it pretty light because, as you can see, my legs are fucking... they're still going. And I want to finish this up, and then that'll be the end of my lift today. So a couple more sets here. That'll be it for today. And then I'll see you tomorrow for some arms and abs. We'll do some beach muscles.